Today we've got a traumatizing revenge story on a mom that won't stop crossing boundaries. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, male coworker kept mansplaining my job to me, so I publicly corrected his structural calculations in front of his clients. I'm 31-year-old female, structural engineer in Christchurch. I specialize in earthquake retrofitting, which is obviously pretty important here. Been doing this for 8 years, have my chartership, the whole thing. This new guy Brendan joined our firm maybe 5 months ago. He's 28, came from Auckland with like 2 years experience. Nice enough at first, but then he started doing this thing where he would explain basic engineering concepts to me, like stuff I learned in my second year of uni. First time he explained what a shear wall was to me, I thought maybe he was just nervous or something, trying to seem knowledgeable. Whatever. But then it kept happening. He'd explain soil liquefaction to me. I wrote my thesis on soil liquefaction in Christchurch. He explained moment frames to me in a meeting in front of clients. I tried to brush it off, but it was just getting embarrassing. My boss noticed and asked if everything was okay, and I said yeah, just Brendan being enthusiastic. Didn't want to seem like I couldn't handle it. The breaking point was 2 weeks ago. We were on site doing an assessment of a building that needed retrofitting. The clients were there, building owners, their lawyer, the whole crew, and Brendan starts explaining to me how to calculate lateral loads while I'm literally in the middle of doing the calculations. I was so done, so I just let him talk. He kept going, getting more confident, and then he said something wrong. He mixed up the seismic weight calculation, used the wrong formula for the site class, and I just let him finish. Then I turned to the clients and said, actually, Brendan's made an error there. This is site class D, not C. So the calculation needs to account for the softer soil profile. The building would fall with his numbers. His face went red. I pulled out my tablet and showed them the correct calculations, explained why his approach would have been dangerous, basically did a whole 5-minute thing on why you need to actually understand local soil conditions. One of the clients actually said, "Oh, so you're the one we should be listening to then?" Brendan tried to say that he just misspoke, but I was like, no, that's a fundamental error that could have meant inadequate strengthening. He barely talked for the rest of the site visit. When we got back to the office, he pulled me aside and said I embarrassed him on purpose. I said, yeah, I did actually, because he's been embarrassing me for months by treating me like I don't know my own job. He went to our boss complaining that I was unprofessional. Boss asked what happened, and when I explained, boss basically said maybe Brendan should focus more on learning from senior engineers than explaining things to them. Brendan's been weird with me since, like overly polite but also clearly annoyed. Some of the other guys think I went too far in doing it in front of the clients, but like he was literally giving them wrong information. That's not just annoying, that's dangerous. Also, maybe don't mansplain earthquake engineering to someone who's been working in Christchurch through all the retrofitting for the past 8 years. You know, I was gonna say maybe OP could have been a little bit more confrontational, but I realized there's no graceful way to do that. With somebody like this who's disregarding your experience and explaining the job in front of you or to you, I don't really know if there is a graceful way to be like, hey, just letting you know, I do know all that. I am kind of an expert at everything you're literally explaining here. I mean, I guess realistically, OP really did kind of pick their best spot to jump in here. Short of that, OP could have been a little bit more honest and open to their boss when the boss said, hey, noticed things were weird, is everything okay? Sky Blue Fox commented, honestly, I'd rather watch my engineer chew out someone who doesn't know what they're doing than have my building collapse. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy, traumatizing revenge stories, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is, server thought crème brûlée shouldn't be burny, so I gave her a menu education. I'm 27-year-old male, pastry chef at a high-end restaurant in Portland. I do the dessert menu, been here 4 years, went to culinary school in Paris, the whole deal. So we hired this server named Ashley maybe 3 months back. She's early 20s, super bubbly with customers, which is great, but she started doing this thing where she would come back to the kitchen and tell me how customers wanted their desserts modified. First time, she asked if we could do the chocolate tart without the gold leaf because a customer thought it was too fancy. I was like, okay, sure, weird, but whatever, plated it plain. But then it became constant. She would ask if we could make the crème brûlée less burny on top. That's literally the entire point of crème brûlée. She wanted me to do our Earl Grey panna cotta without the Earl Grey because someone didn't like tea. Just like, make a different dessert at that point. I tried explaining that the menu was designed a certain way. These were my recipes. But she would do this thing where she'd be like, but the customer really wants it, with this pouty face. And I didn't want to be the difficult chef stereotype, so I would usually just modify it. It was getting ridiculous though. My sous chef asked why we were basically running a custom dessert operation. I said I don't know, trying to keep Ashley happy I guess. Then last Saturday we were slammed. Full restaurant, 2-hour wait list. And Ashley comes back during the dinner rush and says table 8 wants the deconstructed apple tart, but can we put it back together because they don't understand why it's all spread out like that. I was so done, so I just stopped what I was doing and I was like, Ashley, why did they order the deconstructed apple tart if they wanted regular apple tart? And she got all defensive like, they didn't know what deconstructed meant. And I wiped my hands on my apron and walked out to table 8 myself. My chef de cuisine was like, what are you doing? But I was already going. I got to the table and introduced myself and said I heard there was some confusion about the dessert. They seemed kind of surprised to see me. I explained that deconstructed meant that we were serving the components separately so you could experience each element. But if they preferred a traditional preparation, I could absolutely make them our classic tarte tatin instead. They were actually really cool about it and said, oh, that makes sense. We'll try it as designed. Walked back to the kitchen. Ashley followed me and was like, you made me look bad. I said, no, you were making me remake dishes all night because you weren't explaining the menu properly. That's literally part of your job. She complained to our manager that I went over her head. Manager pulled me aside and I explained the whole 3 months of modifications. Manager was like, wait, you've been doing custom orders every night? When I told him everything, he basically said Ashley needs to actually read the menu descriptions and understand what she's selling before taking orders. They made her do a full menu tasting the next day. She had to try every dessert and learn what everything was. She's barely talked to me since, except for when absolutely necessary, but I spent years developing these recipes. You can't just crowdsource the menu based on whatever random requests come in. Also, maybe don't tell a pastry chef how to make desserts when you thought crème brûlée was supposed to be soft on top. So the main thing I latched onto here is OP pointing out that it's literally OP's recipes. If the restaurant is set up in a way where OP is given that control over the menu, how could OP possibly be in the wrong for getting upset when there's all these custom orders being sent back? You just sell the ticket, sell the menu. If I was in OP's position, I would be like, I swear to God, Ashley, if you bring me one more custom order, I'm gonna put in a custom order to the manager to send your butt packing. Licorice Sunfish commented that you went over her head, as if she somehow is equal or higher ranked than you in the order of operations? I say this as a former server. Babe, the cash register has more seniority than you. Our next story is the neighbor who thought I was an easy target. I just moved into a new apartment, and from day one of my neighbors decided I was too quiet and easy to push around. She would blast music late at night, leave trash in the hallway, and complain to the building manager about things I hadn't even done. At first, I tried to ignore it, but it got ridiculous when she started knocking on my door unannounced to check if I was being too loud, even though I barely had anyone over. So, I decided to have a little fun. I bought a set of tiny wireless speakers and hid them in the walls near her apartment. Then I started playing the weirdest, most random sounds at random times. Duck quacks, alien noises, someone chanting, I am a pickle. All super faint, so she would hear it but couldn't tell where it was coming from. She completely freaked out, asked neighbors if they had heard it, paced around her apartment, even bought sound meters trying to prove I was the culprit. Every time she thought she'd caught me, the sounds would stop. Within a week, she gave up on bothering me. She even moved out a month later, and I never had another problem. Honestly, it felt amazing to turn the tables without ever confronting her directly. Sometimes the best revenge is just using your brain and letting her dig her own hole. Could you imagine crawling in bed at night and all you hear is a very faint in the distance, I am a pickle. I am a pickle. I'm not sure if I would be more frightened or amused in that situation. Rosanante commented, I am a pickle is sending me. Electro Purist commented, how did you get in the walls? OP responded, I didn't actually go into the walls. There were small gaps and open spots around the radiator and the built-in cabinet, so I just slid the tiny speakers in there. No real wall breaking or anything like that. Our next story is, my mother would shame me having stomach aches until I made a mess of myself in public. I kept getting comments on my stories of people thinking I'm a bot. I verified with mods I'm a real person and I am. Y'all need to chill. Anyways, on to the trauma. I pooped in one of the dioramas at an appliance store. My entire life, my digestive issues were because you don't drink enough water or you're dramatic in acting. When I would be covered in sweat, guts knotted up, and dizzy from the agony, I was later diagnosed with IBS-M. So, as a kid full of shame, I tried to keep my pain hidden. Messing your pants as a kid was peak humiliation, and in my day, we got spankings. We were walking around looking at dishwashers and clothes dryers. The signature warehouse smell made me nauseous. The bubble gut started. I had the tingles and sweats before we even left the house, but was too young to ask to be left home alone. I, even as a kid, gave myself the silent pep talk all people with tummy tantrums do. Not here. Why now? I'm okay. This doesn't hurt. I'm okay. I won't poop myself. Just hold it in a few more minutes. I won't poop myself. But we all know this was all a lie. I totally was going to do that if I didn't act fast. But why didn't you ask for the bathroom, OP? Because I was a literal child and was tired of being a burden for taking so long to finish a constant, non-stop marathon of pooping where my butt is an open portal to fiery heck every time we went somewhere. My mother and sister would act so aggressive and aggravated because I would sit in a stall, my insides feeling like they would turn themselves inside out, and I had to listen to put-downs, be humiliated by how it smelled, and just made to feel like I was such a problem because I had a medical condition that my mother never took me to get checked out. Anyway, my sister and I decided to play in some of the dioramas until suddenly it became a diarrhea. To hide my bubbly guts of doom, I suggested playing hide and seek with my older sister and ran as far away from everyone as I could. I crawled into a cabinet and promptly took a massive fiery liquid one underneath this sink cabinet. It was so forceful I became increasingly anxious it would pool around me. I used my Tuesday underpants to wipe myself and then ran out, leaving my sin to be discovered by someone else. The smell was wretched, but luckily did not follow me. I made my way through the maze of furniture, a young couple looking at a wooden kitchen set. Images flashed before my eyes of them walking a little further and discovering my poo-poo masterpiece. I suddenly became afraid that they would call the police and arrest me. Now, I don't know why I thought that, but my kid brain told me it was certain to happen. People don't poop in public, so that means it has to be illegal. I was about to cry from fear, so I hid behind a long row of clothes dryers, pretending to have been hiding in the same spot the entire time, far away from the crap closet. Soon, my ma came to scold my sister and I for playing in the appliances. When we got home, my mother noticed I wasn't wearing underpants again. It was an ongoing battle where my ma just thought I didn't wear them, when in reality, I was regularly crapping in places and leaving them there. I did wear them, I whined in between tears. My mother continued on her string of complaining and dismissive words. I had to tell her. I pooped myself at ABC Warehouse, I mumbled. My mother stopped, replying, when? I say, when we were playing hide and seek. My mother's face dropped. You could almost see the dots connecting behind her eyes. My tummy hurts all the time and you yell at me when I need to go to the bathroom, I blurted out. So I had to poop and left my underpants there. The horror, the disgusted, the unbridled fear in my mother's expression both terrified me and somehow relieved me as I was being heard that I had a problem. It took me crapping in a cabinet for it to be taken seriously. Sometime later, my mom took me to the pediatrician. I was not, in fact, able to control it. I was given a white pill I had to take once a day, and while it helped, I still struggle with IBS-M as an adult. Luckily, I was never arrested for pooping there. What happened to my poop cabinet remains a mystery. While there may be some traumatizing revenge for the mom here, let's be real, most of the traumatizing revenge isn't revenge. It's just a full-on onslaught on the poor person who's getting paid a minimum wage to have to clean the poop cabinet. I think if I was working in this ABC warehouse and I stumbled upon that and I was told I have to clean that up, I would rather sooner quit. Siren of the Seas commented, "Your storytelling is hilarious, but my heart aches for child you who had to endure that." OP replied, "No, please laugh. I had poop revenge and my mother's likely mortified to this day because she had so many failures as a parent." Our next story is, Waitress thought I was transgender, so we flashed them. About 12 years ago, it was 2 a.m. and my friend group and I went to Denny's, a crappy restaurant always open until like 3 a.m., blazed out of our minds. In the Midwest, this is what Denny's is for. You get smashed, obliterated, tripping balls, and what do you do because you can't go home? You go to freaking Denny's and eat crappy eggs and hash browns, pancakes, and mozzarella sticks until you sober up. I'm a tall bean. I'm a skinny bean. I am completely flat-chested. Even when I had my fat phase, I was built like a fridge. During this time, though, I was built like a poker table. My hair was short, given I had a mohawk, and we were really drunk from a concert we had been at. Five-finger death punch for you degenerates out there. We sit down, naturally because I'm a lady. I was wearing lipstick, eyeliner smudged to heck from sweat, and a fat lip. Lady comes over to take our order. Everyone takes their turn, and I ask for deep-fried mushrooms and mozzarella sticks. She eyes me and says, "No problem, sir." I don't correct her because, frankly, I was too smashed to notice. My one friend did, the lipstick lesbian, and she gave the fry squint and brought it up in a whisper. "The heck is her problem?" she asks, full bombastic side-eye, lips curled back, eyes wide with one eyelash falling off at the corner. "She works at Denny's catering to old men and drunk 20-somethings, homie said, slurring and comically struggling to put the freaking straw in his mouth so he could drink ice water. I'll never forget how freaking dumb this dude is, and I love him. We like homie, okay? He just thinks he's super clever when you wonder if his mom smoked cigarettes while pregnant. I'm just lusting after my plates of vegetables cooked in fat and breaded string cheese. Lipstick starts on about how the waitress called me sir. I don't give a freak because I already know I am fairly androgynous, but like, hot androgynous? Don't be a hater. You know you've looked at someone who looks good but you can't tell what's going on, and if you find out, you wonder how gay or straight you are before proceeding. Anyways, lady comes back. Everyone's getting their crap. Mine hasn't come out. I'm so hungry I could cry. I want that greasy food so bad. I'm stoned and grumpy because I'm stoned and trashed and starving. Everyone eats. Homie and Doc Martin mud laces make yummy humming sounds, and I proceed to stare like an orphan on Thanksgiving. Lady comes back and lipstick asks about my food. My frown and puppy dog eyes water because I was timid at that age, and thank God I had lipstick to run her mouth on my behalf. Lady stares at me and says, "I'll ask about his order." I reply, "I'm a lady though." The lady hums, the vibes get weird. Okay, I have a lady voice, okay? Doesn't that typically give people away? Right? Nah, guess not. No food, 20 minutes later, no food. I grab a fist of Mudlace's fries and shamelessly shove them into my face, ketchup drizzled all over them. Off topic, I hate that. Normal people dip their fries. You can't trust people who drizzle ketchup and eat fries with a fork. Insanity. Lady asks if we want our checks. "Nah, I want my food though," I whimper, very overdramatic. The lady fakes forgetting and walks away. I walk up to the register to ask someone about my food, like looking for another waitress. I hear in the back, "Some skinny dude wants his food." I have no idea what to do. What is the social decorum for eavesdropping on a homophobic piece of crap? My butt didn't know. Man comes out, sees me standing there in lipstick, leather jacket, skinny jeans, and a band t-shirt. "I'm not a dude," is the only thing I can say. The dude, manager, employee, I don't know, looks at me and says, "I'm so sorry," and walks away. I hear words but don't know what they are. I do hear this lady say, "I don't give a crap about some transgender, you take it out to them then." Oh lord, this is so awkward. I just want to eat, dude. I want to eat and walk along the road, throw rocks on the train tracks, and stumble home to my dad's house and hope he doesn't give me this lecture about women drinking because culture, even though I'm 22 at the time. There are louder words. There's some noise. The lady comes out and I'm afraid of loud noises. She pulls off her name tag and walks around the counter. Maybe she's leaving or walking out? Lipstick comes up. Girl is ready for a shouting match. I have no inner sassy black woman because I'm not a black woman. Not to worry, lipstick is enough for the both of us. Lipstick is a lesbian in a black woman's world. Lipstick's also Mexican. Lipstick is fully aware she's the angry stereotype. She doesn't care. She's trashed. Lipstick spent 3 hours screaming and thrashing. I am more so Lipstick's golden retriever friend. Lipstick starts shouting. I smell food. I just want food. I don't hear anything but the ringing in my ears and wondering how far away McDonald's is from our location. Oh, Walgreens was 24 hours and they had chips. I like chips. And those skinny, long, flaky cookies with chocolate in the middle that rich people eat. I look up and Lipstick says something about how I can't help that the Lord didn't give me a chest. And she turns me around and slaps my butt, telling them no white man has a butt like that. And I'm both confused and silently enjoying having a hot lady slap my butt. This waitress stops her own yelling, likely in shock. I wouldn't eat your downstairs area if it was the only thing on the menu. What the freak, Lipstick? Actually, heck yeah, Lipstick. I started giggling and rubbed my face to make sure both my eyes were open. Oh, that's right, Lipstick snorted a line. Oh crap, I was so happy because I ate mushrooms when we left the concert. Oh no, I ate mushrooms after we left the venue. Oh my god, that was a bad idea. I lift up my shirt. I have a sports bra. I'm a lady, I say, and I start laughing. Lipstick has been enabled. Lipstick flashes the waitress and runs out the door. Mudlaces and Homie bolt out the door. I'm standing there. The lady's mouth is so wide, so full of horror, I'm wondering why her tongue is so big. Oh heck, I am so done with this place. She obviously wasn't talking to me, but I say, okay, bye, and walk out. I mean, I didn't have a bill to pay. I could just leave. I walk outside. Where the freak did everyone go? I turn the corner. There's 4 cars in the parking lot. None are ours. One has a window sticker of a cat. Lipstick found it. Lipstick, Mudlaces, and Homie are peeing on the car. Who are these people and why am I here? The trees become so loud I can feel the cold ground through my shoes. I shout, Walgreens, and run towards the trees into the direction of the nearby CVS. Time passes, but I came back to Earth in the CVS, scared to touch the chip bag. A cashier knows I'm high, probably, and my friends come through the door laughing. Where were you? Mudlaces asks me. Cookies, I reply, hugging a bag of Doritos. I go to the register. Life is beautiful. The cops are probably being called. The scanner beeps. Enter your rewards number, the cashier says. I wondered if my hand could phase through the counter if I touched it hard enough. We showed Denny's our boobies, I replied, poking the buttons. So square, so button. The cashier sighs, friends come up, they have drinks, I leave with no cookies. Thanks for reading. So we kind of got to the revenge, the traumatizing revenge there. And then I feel like I was personally force-fed some kind of substance and taken on the ride all the way through the rest of the way. I feel like I just read a proposal script for like an offshoot of like Fear and Loathing or something. Topbox8952 commented, when you're telling us about a story of being high, you don't have to get high to retell it. This was extremely amusing. You certainly got banned from that Denny's, but freak 'em anyway. Our local Denny's is a Sonic now. OP replied, well, that's like your opinion, man. Our next story is, I'll teach you what noise really is. I live in a small, quiet neighborhood of independent houses. My next door neighbors are angels. There always seems like there's no one home, even if they're a family of 5 adults and 3 children. Sometimes the children throw pool parties in the summer, but they're so adorable to watch that I would never even think about complaining. The same cannot be said, unfortunately, for the inhabitants of the house behind mine. The grandma has a very screechy voice, and I understand she can't help it, but it still gets on my nerves when she screams for her dogs to come inside at 6 a.m. The son-in-law has a small under-the-table side hustle of repairing motorbikes, so you can hear motors running every single evening, plus the whole weekends as a bonus. The other son has the most loud voice I ever heard. Sometimes I would eavesdrop because I thought he was gonna murder the entire family. Turns out he was just chatting in his regular tone of voice. The kids, of course, are screaming goblins, since everyone screams in that house, and the older one has taken the habit of trying his father's motorbikes, even if he's not old enough to have a license, on his front lawn and up and down the street. I'm usually not confrontational, so I always kept my mouth shut, thinking that it's just how they are and that there's no point engaging in a screaming match with them, until one particular afternoon where I reached my breaking point. It was a warm summer weekend, so I had my windows open. The neighbors decided to have lunch on the porch since it was such a nice day. It was heck. Everyone was screaming at the top of their lungs, the kids were wreaking havoc, even the poor dogs were barking incessantly. Plus, I had just gotten off of a rough night shift, so I was particularly cranky. I waited and waited for hours. 1 p.m. passed, then 2 p.m., 3 p.m., still hollering like air raid sirens. At that point, I had officially lost it. My husband is a metalhead. I'm more into rock music, but I know a thing or two about growling and screaming, so I turned my computer on, plugged in the most powerful sound system I owned, and pointed it directly at their house, got on YouTube, and found a mayhem playlist. I blasted it at full volume for 10 to 15 minutes, then I turned it off. Nothing. Not a peep. Just cicadas singing. They never had an outside lunch ever again, as far as I can tell. They're still noisy, but keep it at a reasonable level. Thanks, Varg Vikernes. You know what the most messed up thing here is? They can be as loud as they want, and because it's natural and propelled from their bodies and whatnot, cops would likely not shut them down or ever hold them accountable for that, and they can still drive OP absolutely crazy, but OP turning around and blasting mayhem at them, that's something they're probably going to be a lot more actionable against. In fact, is there anything that you could blast on your speakers in their direction and not get held liable from actual actionable cops? CKO Saccharinoid commented, Baby Shark is more of the nuke option. Nish Wishes commented, when I was at university, I had 2 awful women among my housemates in my 3rd year. They were awful in general, but also loved to blast music, shout their phone calls, etc. One evening, I was done. So I put my laptop speakers on full and blasted Wonderful Rush from the anime Love Live Idol School on repeat for a bit. It's the most bouncy, squeaky, silly pop song you can think of. It didn't take long before they stopped, even if it was only for the night. Our next story is, Mom won't stop crossing my boundaries. My mom is a very old-styled woman, conservative, etc. She thinks a man's happiness revolves 90% around how in the bed satisfied they are. I'm a disabled person, so my intimate life has always been a very big concern to her. After I lost my virginity, I told her I was fine and I could carry on a normal intimate life and she shouldn't worry about it any longer. However, she kept asking annoying and unnecessary questions. When she didn't ask it directly, she would throw hints or make jokes about it. One day, she knew I'd spent the night with a lady. Calls me in the very morning. She got you done, didn't she? Unfortunately for her, my mom is also full of taboos and likes to be as closed as possible about her own intimacy. But one day, months later, I knew she had spent the night hanging out, slept with a man, came back home drunk and went to sleep. I went to her bedroom, at the door, saying, "He really got you done, didn't he?" She didn't joke anymore. Before you ask, I told her many times that I had enough and there were no more reasons for her to keep being pushy about my intimacy. I did it to her when talking wasn't working, and I had enough. There was a story on one of my videos recently where I was talking about how crazy and foreign it is to me to openly talk with your own parents about your intimate life and stuff. You know, it's just not the kind of household and openness that I grew up around. This right here, what OP shared, is kind of exactly how I would feel. Like, if my own mom came in and said, "She got you done, didn't she?" I'd be like, shut up. I'd be like, please stop talking. Allegra O commented, something to keep in your back pocket if she ever starts up again. Are you okay? Your obsession with your child's genitals and hooking up life is really quite disturbing. Have you considered therapy? Kaibik Hansu replied, on the other pocket, just think of the most nauseating things you can think to do during hooking up and tell her with the utmost details including smells, level of moisture, noises, and whatnot. One, plosh plosh, and she'll truly be traumatized. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy traumatizing story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.